They say when your life falls apart, sometimes it's because something far greater is waiting to be built in its place. But when I lost everything, my family, my fiance, my dignity, I didn't believe that. Not for a second. Because on the day I found out my parents' will, my entire world shattered. My younger brother, the golden child, inherited a mansion worth over $800,000 in New York. And me, they left me a rotting wooden cabin in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. I remember standing in that lawyer's office, the air heavy with cologne and expensive silence. Caleb was laughing, shaking hands as if he already knew the ending. And when the words came, Ethan Hale will receive the property located in Fairbanks, Alaska, I didn't even breathe. It felt like my father had reached from beyond the grave just to remind me that I was the disappointment, the afterthought, the one who never measured up. Caleb leaned over, smirking. Guess Dad always believed in me, he said, patting my shoulder like a coach consoling a losing player. I wanted to hit him, but I didn't. I just sat there, numb, as the lawyer's voice blurred into background noise. That night, when I told Rachel, my fiancée, she didn't just leave me. She destroyed me. She screamed so loud the walls shook. A cabin? Are you kidding me, Ethan? Caleb gets a mansion and you get a shack in the woods? Do you even hear yourself? You're a pathetic loser. You always have been. Her words didn't just cut deep. They carved me hollow. When she threw the engagement ring onto the table, it made a sound I'll never forget. A sharp clink, like a gunshot to the heart. Then she slammed the door, and suddenly, the apartment was silent. No fiancé. No family. No future. Just a piece of paper in my pocket, the deed to a rotting shack at the end of the world. For days, I carried that paper everywhere. I'd unfold it, stare at it, curse at it, hate it. What kind of sick joke was this? But one night, something shifted. I looked at that faded ink again, and for the first time, I didn't see a punishment. I saw a test. If this was all I was worth to them, fine, I'd see it for myself. So I packed a single bag, booked a one-way ticket to Alaska, and left behind the life that had already decided I was nothing. Music builds. Low percussion, cold atmosphere. The plane was small, one of those that rattles like it's held together by prayer. Outside, endless white. Mountains, frozen rivers, miles of wilderness that looked like another planet. I kept replaying Rachel's words. Pathetic loser. They followed me into the clouds, whispering every time the engine trembled. When we landed, the cold hit like a fist. Sharp. Brutal. I stepped out, breath fogging the air, and realized I was really alone. A driver took me as far as his truck would go, down icy roads surrounded by nothing but dark forest and silence. Then he stopped. That's as far as I can take you, he said, pointing into the trees. Cabin's about a mile that way. A mile, in the snow, with the sun already sinking. I paid him, shouldered my bag, and started walking. Each step crunched through the snow, my breath loud in my ears. There were no houses, no power lines, just endless frozen quiet. And then, I saw it. The cabin. It looked worse than I'd imagined, like a skeleton half buried in frost. The porch sagged, one window was shattered, and the wood was blackened with rot. The roof bowed inward, heavy with snow. I laughed. One bitter, hollow sound. Of course, this was exactly the kind of inheritance you'd give to the failure son. I dropped my bag on the porch and pushed open the door. The hinges screamed, a long, metallic cry that echoed through the stillness. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Broken chairs, mold, mouse droppings, the smell of wood long dead. This is what they thought of me, I said out loud. My voice echoed back, small and lonely. This is all I'm worth. For a moment, I thought about calling Caleb just to hear him gloat, but I could already imagine it. His laugh, his smug pity, his words dripping with false sympathy. You always were too soft, Ethan. Dad tried to toughen you up. That night, I found a half-broken chair, brushed off the dust, and sat there until the dark swallowed the cabin whole. When I finally lay down in my sleeping bag, the cold crept into my bones. The wind outside howled like a warning, and every creak in the woods sounded like the house whispering my name. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rachel's face, the disgust in her eyes when she told me she was done wasting her life on me. Pathetic loser. The words beat against my skull until dawn. When morning came, I stumbled outside. The cold was a living thing, biting through my gloves, burning my skin. The world was silent, the kind of silence that feels infinite. No traffic, no voices, no life, just me and the cabin. I almost left right then. sell the land, take whatever I could get, disappear. But something deep and angry, kept me there. I couldn't go back. Not like this. Not beaten. So I went back inside and started cleaning. The first thing I did was clear the debris near the fireplace. As I moved a pile of broken wood, I noticed a section of the floor that sounded different when I stepped on it. Hollow. I knelt, brushed the dirt away, and saw faint lines, a square outline in the boards. A trapdoor. At first I thought it was nothing, maybe a storage hatch or an old cellar. But something about it felt deliberate. The latch was rusted, but it moved with enough force. When I pulled it open, a gust of cold air rushed up, thick with dust and the smell of old metal. Below was darkness, deep, waiting, unnatural. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it down. Wooden steps led underground. My heart started pounding. Every instinct told me to leave it alone, but I didn't. Step by step, I descended. The air grew colder. Not the kind of cold from winter, but the kind that feels unnatural. When I reached the bottom, my light hit metal. A door. Steel. Reinforced. Completely out of place in a wooden cabin built decades ago. There was a keypad beside it, faded, but still there. I stared, confused, as my breath fogged in the beam of light. What the hell was this? This wasn't a storage hatch. It was a vault. And that's when I realized maybe this cabin wasn't worthless after all. I searched the walls, the floor, the shelves, and behind a loose plank near the fireplace, I found it. A small black notebook. Old, leather-bound, the initials AH pressed into the cover. Arthur Hale, my father. I opened it. The first page read, "Ethan, if you're reading this, you finally found what Caleb never could." I froze. My father had written this for me. I turned the page. It continued, "This cabin is more than it seems. What's buried beneath it is the reason I built this place in the first place. You will find the truth here, but only if you have the courage to look where others won't." The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. My father, the same man who spent his entire life ignoring me. The man who left me this cabin like a punishment. I flipped through the pages, scanning line after line, diagrams, coordinates, numbers, and a single phrase repeated across several pages. The vault holds everything. I looked back toward the trapdoor, the vault door below, and for the first time since his death, I felt something other than anger. I felt curiosity. What had my father hidden here? Why leave this for me, the son he never believed in? I dropped the notebook into my bag and went back down the steps. I brushed the dust from the keypad. Most of the numbers were faded, but one stood out, the number 29. My age. Could that be it? I typed 2929 into the keypad. Nothing. Then I tried 0291, my birth date. Still nothing. I sighed, stepped back, and that's when I noticed something faint scratched into the metal near the bottom of the door. 4 numbers. 1986. The year my father bought the cabin. I pressed the sequence. The keypad clicked. A low mechanical hum echoed in the dark. Then, a hiss. The steel door began to open. Slowly, heavily, revealing a dimly lit chamber beyond it. I lifted my flashlight, and what I saw made my heart stop. Stacks. Dozens of them. Boxes, crates, metal containers, all sealed. All stamped with one word, Hale Industries. My family's company, the one my father built from nothing, the one Caleb now ran. But these weren't business records. These were assets, gold bars, bonds, files, blueprints, and in one open crate, under a layer of dust, I saw stacks of cash. Hundreds, thousands, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I took a step back, my hands trembling. This wasn't a cabin, it was a vault, a hidden fortune, and somehow, it was mine. My father hadn't abandoned me. He trusted me. Maybe he knew Caleb would ruin what he was given. Maybe he knew Rachel would leave. Maybe this, all of it, was his way of forcing me to find the strength he always said I lacked. I looked around the underground room, the flashlight trembling in my hand. There were boxes labeled with years, files marked confidential, and one sealed envelope with my name written in black ink. Ethan. I picked it up, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Inside was a single key and a note. 5 words. Unlock what Caleb could not. I didn't understand it then, but I would, because that night, the night I opened that cabin door, was the night everything changed. The night I stopped being the forgotten son. And the night I stepped into a secret that would rewrite everything I thought I knew about my family. The cabin wasn't a curse. It was a message, a test. And what waited in that vault was worth $50 million. But that was just the beginning. Because buried deeper than the money was something my father never wanted the world to see. Something that could destroy everything Caleb had built. And as the wind howled outside that forgotten cabin in Alaska, I realized I wasn't the loser anymore. I was the one holding the truth. Music fades to a tense silence, a single breath, then a heartbeat. And soon the world would know exactly what Arthur Hale had done. Sound of the wind rising again, the faint creak of the cabin door closing. But before I tell you what was inside that final box, you need to understand what my father was hiding and why he left it to me. Swells, cold, cinematic strings. Because what I found next wasn't gold. It wasn't cash. It was evidence. And once I saw it, I knew there was no going back. Audio fades out, leaving only the echo of the wind and the faint metallic click of the vault door locking shut. Imagine this. You've just lost everything. Your parents, your fiancé, your dignity. And then, standing in the ruins of what's left of your life, you find something buried beneath the floorboards. Something that changes everything. My name is Ethan Hale, and until a few weeks ago, I thought my life was over. Every time I lifted a broken piece of debris in that old Alaskan cabin, I heard my father's voice. "You're weak, Ethan. You'll never amount to anything." Every time I swept dust into a pile, I saw my brother Caleb smirk, that smug little twist of his mouth that always said, "You'll never catch up." And every time I opened another creaking door in that freezing, rotting house, I heard Rachel's words echoing like poison. "You're a pathetic loser, Ethan." That cabin wasn't just wood and rot. It was a graveyard of everything I'd failed to be. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there had to be more. There had to be a reason my parents left this place to me. So I worked, not out of hope, but out of desperation. The walls groaned, the floor threatened to give way, but I kept moving. My hands blistered, my breath turned to smoke in the cold, and every ache in my body whispered the same thing: don't stop. Then, as I pulled away an old rug that crumbled at my touch, I saw it. A small iron ring embedded in the floor. A handle. I froze. My heart started to hammer. My hands shook as I pulled. The wood groaned, splitting with a sound that cut through the silence like a scream. And then, darkness. A square opening in the floor, cold air spilling out from below, smelling of earth and secrets. A hidden cellar. I stared at it, the beam of my flashlight trembling in my grip. Wooden steps descended into blackness. I should have walked away, but something deep inside, something I couldn't name, pulled me forward. Each step creaked under my weight as I went down, one after another, the air growing colder, heavier. My breath fogged in front of me. Then the light found them. Wooden crates stacked neatly against the stone walls, metal chests, a massive trunk in the corner, its brass fittings dulled with age. Dust everywhere, but everything organized, deliberate. My hands were shaking as I pried open the first crate. The wood splintered apart, and inside, bundles wrapped in old cloth. I untied one and the light hit gold. Coins, hundreds of them. Heavy, real, glowing faintly even through the dust of decades. My breath caught in my throat. I tore open another bundle, jewelry this time, rings, necklaces, brooches, each one set with stones that glinted like fire in the beam of my flashlight. I stumbled back, clutching the light, my chest pounding. It wasn't junk, it wasn't worthless, it was a fortune. And for the first time since my parents' funeral, I couldn't breathe. Not from grief, but from the sheer weight of it. Gold, silver, gems, millions. My mind spun. I could almost hear my father's voice, but this time, not cruel, not cold. Maybe he wasn't punishing me. Maybe he was testing me. All those years of silence, of disappointment, of being told I wasn't enough, maybe it had been building to this moment. They hadn't trusted Caleb with it. They trusted me. The thought hit me so hard I had to sit down. I stared at the gold in my hands, at the treasure that shouldn't exist. My father, my mother, they had chosen me. Not the golden child, not the favorite, me, the quiet one, the failure. But that realization didn't bring peace. It brought fear. What if Caleb found out? What if Rachel somehow heard? What if the world discovered what was hidden here beneath this cabin that everyone thought was worthless? I closed the crate and forced myself to breathe. I wasn't ready for anyone to know, not yet. In the corner, the large trunk called to me. I dragged it open, coughing as dust filled the air. Inside were old ledgers, wrapped in leather, brittle with age. I flipped one open, pages of handwritten records, land rights, mining claims, business transactions dating back nearly a century, and one name kept appearing. Elias Hale, my grandfather. The man my father never spoke about, the one I thought was just a ghost in family history. Now I realized he'd built something, a legacy buried under generations of silence. And somehow, it had all ended up here, waiting for me. I sat there for hours, flipping through those pages, surrounded by crates of treasure. My flashlight dimmed, the cold gnawed at my hands, but I couldn't stop reading. Every word, every signature told me the same thing. This wasn't an accident. My parents hadn't abandoned me. They'd trusted me. When I finally climbed back up into the cabin, dawn was breaking outside. The snow reflected the pale light through the broken window, and for the first time, that cabin didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a secret. That night, I reinforced the trapdoor with new nails, covered it again with the rug, and spent hours cleaning. The act of repairing the place became something sacred. Every board I mended, every nail I hammered in, it was like reclaiming pieces of myself. And then I found it. Tucked inside one of the ledgers, folded between two yellowed pages, an envelope. My name written across the front in my mother's handwriting. I froze. My throat tightened as I tore it open. The paper was fragile, the ink slightly faded, but her voice was alive in every word. Open quote, Ethan, if you're reading this, it means your father and I are gone. What we have left for you is not a mistake. It is trust. Your father always admired Caleb's confidence, but he saw danger in it, recklessness. He saw pride without patience. But with you, he saw something different, strength that hides in silence, a will that endures. You were never the lesser son. You were the one who could be trusted with this. Please forgive us for the way it may have seemed. We love you, Mom. Close quote. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at those words. The tears came before I could stop them. For years, I'd believed their silence meant rejection. That my father's indifference was proof I'd failed him. That my mother's softness was pity, not love. But they had seen me, all along. I pressed that letter to my chest, and everything I'd ever believed about my life cracked open. All the humiliation, all the bitterness, all the nights wondering why I was never enough, they melted away. They hadn't abandoned me. They'd chosen me. But with that truth came something else, the storm. Because word of the will had already spread. And Caleb, he was furious. He called me one night, his voice sharp, dripping with arrogance. So how's life in your little shack, big brother? You realize yet that Mom and Dad left you a pile of garbage while I got the real house? He laughed. That same cold, cutting laugh I'd heard my whole life. Sell it, Ethan. Stop embarrassing yourself. Everyone knows you can't handle anything better. I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to tell him everything. About the cellar, the gold, the ledgers, but I didn't. Instead, I said quietly, I'm managing. And that was all. Because I realized something in that moment. Caleb wasn't my enemy. My own doubt was. But of course, the past doesn't die quietly. Weeks later, Rachel reached out. A message popped up on my phone. Open quote, Ethan, I've been thinking. I overreacted. I miss you. Maybe we could talk. Close quote. I stared at the screen, remembering her voice. Sharp, cruel, calling me worthless. And I deleted the message without a word. She hadn't missed me. She'd heard whispers. Money has a way of calling people back like ghosts. So I shut her out. I shut everyone out. Days turned into nights as I worked in that cabin, cataloging everything, counting coins, photographing ledgers, trying to understand just how deep this legacy went. And the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just wealth, it was power. Elias Hale had owned land rich with minerals, timber, and oil rights, some still active today. The fortune in gold was only the surface. The true inheritance was what those documents represented: ownership, control, history. My parents hadn't just given me a treasure, they'd given me a second chance. That night, I built a fire in the hearth, watching the flames twist and dance across the cabin walls. My mother's letter lay open on my lap. I spoke into the flickering light, my voice steady, strong. I'll protect this. I'll make it grow. You trusted me, and I won't fail you. The fire crackled in response, like the cabin itself was listening, and for the first time in my life, I felt whole. The cabin wasn't a punishment anymore. It was a monument to trust, to endurance, to quiet strength. For years, I had lived under other people's definitions of success. Caleb's pride, my father's expectations, Rachel's shallow ambition. But not anymore. Standing in that old wooden house, I finally understood. This was my legacy, my story, and I wasn't done yet. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when you dig deep enough into your family's secrets, you don't just find treasure, you find truth. And sometimes that truth can change everything. The snow outside was falling hard that night, whispering against the windows like ghosts from another life. And as I stared into the flames, I felt something stir in me, a resolve I'd never known before. The cabin was mine now. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was only the beginning. Somewhere beneath the snow, beneath the silence, this story wasn't finished. Not yet. The wind cut through the trees like a whisper from another world. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. It presses against your chest until you can hear your own heartbeat echoing in your ears. I stood there staring out at the endless stretch of frozen forest, snow hanging heavy on the branches, the air so still it felt sacred. And in that moment, one thought hit me like a bolt of lightning. This is mine. Not just the cabin. Not just the gold or the land buried beneath it, but the choice to do something meaningful with my life. For the first time in years, that power belonged to me. In the days that followed, I worked like a man possessed. The cabin, once a rotting skeleton of wood and neglect, began to breathe again. I patched walls, fixed the roof, swept out years of dust, and replaced every broken window pane with my own 2 hands. Every swing of the hammer felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. Piece by piece, nail by nail. My father's voice used to haunt me. "You lack drive, Ethan." Caleb's laughter still rang in my ears, mocking, sharp, cruel. And Rachel's words? "You're pathetic." But now, every insult became fuel. Every repair, every bit of sweat dripping down my neck was my silent answer to all of them. I didn't yell. I didn't fight back. I just worked. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need their validation. I was building something real. Something mine. At night, I'd light the old stone fireplace, sit in front of it, and go through the ledgers I'd found in the cellar. Thick, leather-bound books filled with numbers, land maps, and signatures that told a story my family had never shared with me. My grandfather, Elias Hale, had built an empire. Mines, timber rights, land stretching farther than I could imagine. And somehow, my parents had chosen me to inherit it all. That realization, it changed everything. Caleb kept calling, his messages oozing arrogance. "Enjoy your shack, Ethan. I'll be in Italy next month. Maybe I'll send you a postcard from my balcony." I used to crumble at his words. Now I just let the phone ring. He thought success meant yachts, champagne, and marble floors. I was beginning to understand that success was something else entirely. It was quiet. It was responsibility. It was the kind of power that didn't need to be seen to be real. Rachel tried again, too. I remember her message like it was yesterday. "I've been thinking, I miss you. I don't care about what your parents left. I just want you back." But I knew better. You see, love built on convenience isn't love, it's hunger. And she had smelled money in the air. I deleted her message without hesitation, without anger, without sadness. Just clarity. For the first time, I was strong enough to walk away from the people who had defined me by their low expectations. I started reaching out quietly to lawyers, historians, and experts who could help me verify what I'd found. I used a false name at first. I didn't want attention, not yet. And when the reports came back, my suspicions were confirmed. The land rights, the mining claims, the artifacts in the cellar, together, they were worth far more than I could have ever imagined. Tens of millions, maybe more. But what hit me hardest wasn't the number. It was the weight of it, the responsibility. The realization that my parents hadn't chosen me because I was the strongest or the smartest, but because they knew I wouldn't waste it. Caleb was given a house he could brag about. I was given a secret I had to protect. He was given comfort. I was given purpose. One night, the fire crackled softly as snow fell outside. I unfolded my mother's letter again. Her handwriting, the loops, the care, it felt alive. "We knew you would protect this legacy, not squander it," she had written. I read those words over and over until they burned themselves into my heart. For years, I had ached for them to say they were proud of me. For years, I wanted to hear those exact words come out of their mouths, but now I realized they had said it, just not the way I expected. They had told me through trust, through silence, through this. The man who had walked into that cabin was broken, humiliated, crushed under the weight of his own failures. But the man sitting there now, he was reborn. I wasn't Caleb's shadow anymore. I wasn't Rachel's mistake. I wasn't my father's disappointment. I was the heir to something far greater than money. I was the heir to a legacy of belief. Weeks later, when I finally decided to leave the cabin and return to New York for a short while, I did it quietly. No big gestures, no phone calls, no explanations. Caleb could keep thinking I was the family embarrassment. That was fine with me, because what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that beneath a forgotten cabin in Alaska, I was sitting on enough to change the course of generations. When the plane lifted off the icy runway, I looked out the window, and I actually smiled. Not because of the money, not because I had won, but because for the first time I understood what my parents had done. They hadn't left me behind, they had prepared me. That cabin wasn't punishment, it was a test, a crucible. It broke me down to my weakest point, then forced me to rebuild, stronger, sharper, more alive than I had ever been. The gold, the jewels, the ledgers, they were just symbols. The real treasure was clarity. Clarity that I had spent my entire life chasing approval from people who were never meant to define me. Clarity that rejection isn't always cruelty. It's sometimes trust in disguise. And clarity that sometimes the places we think are our biggest failures are actually the hidden doors to everything we've ever needed. My father's harshness, my mother's quiet distance, it all made sense now. They weren't pushing me away. They were pushing me toward something. Toward this. The cold air hit my face as I stepped off the plane in New York, but I felt different. My posture, my voice, my silence. It all carried a weight it never had before. Caleb was waiting, of course. "Back already?" he asked, that same smug grin plastered on his face. "Yeah," I said. "Just had to take care of a few things." He laughed, brushing it off, thinking I'd gone up north to clean up junk. I didn't correct him. Why would I? Some truths are too powerful to be shared with people who'll never understand them. Rachel texted again that week. "Can we talk?" I didn't even open it. Because when you finally realize your worth, you stop needing permission to feel it. The cabin had changed everything. It wasn't a ruin anymore. It was proof. Proof that sometimes you have to lose everything, your pride, your comfort, your illusions, to find what truly matters. It's strange, isn't it? How the cruelest moments in your life can become the very foundations of your redemption. If you're listening to this, maybe you've felt the same. Maybe you've stood somewhere cold and empty, wondering if anyone ever truly saw you, wondering if the pain, the rejection, the silence all meant something. I'm here to tell you, it does. Because the cabin I once hated became my salvation. The insults that once destroyed me became my drive. The silence that once crushed me became my peace. Sometimes what feels like abandonment is actually faith. And sometimes the people who seem hardest on you are the ones who believe you're capable of more than anyone else ever could. I left Alaska a different man. Not because I found gold, but because I found myself. But there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone. When I was packing up my things to leave the cabin, I found another envelope wedged beneath one of the cellar steps. Faded. Fragile. It had my father's handwriting this time. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because I think, deep down, I'm not ready for what it might say. And part of me wonders if it's not another letter at all, but something else entirely. Something that might change everything I thought I understood about the legacy they left behind. The snow is falling again now as I record this. The cabin stands silent in the dark, waiting. And I can't shake the feeling that my story there isn't over. Not yet.